how when I decided to become a pastor, I looked at my life beforehand. And I don't think I mentioned this to you, but I looked at my life beforehand and I realized that, man, like this doesn't fit the image that I thought I should be. So I cut it off. And that's why like I fell off for a bit. Like our friendship kind of just was like in the air for a bit. I just totally disappeared and didn't call anyone, didn't talk to anyone from my past, and just focused on the people I was with. And it's only recently too, actually, where the people I was with, we were just talking and they were like, how come you're so, it doesn't feel like you're being yourself. All right. And it's like, oh, like every time you show this side of you, like of like this, you know, this ghetto side of you, it's like, it doesn't like, why are you trying to pretend? And it's only like, honestly, a couple of days ago where I realized I'm like, I wasn't trying to pretend that I was this, you know, this ghetto kid. I was this ghetto kid. What I'm trying to pretend is I'm a good person. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What is good, everyone? Welcome to the Kwentossentials podcast, where we talk about stories that shape us. As always, I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Dom, and we are your hosts for the Kwentossential podcast.
Let's get it. This is actually part 2 of our conversation earlier in our previous episodes. So if you haven't listened to that, I encourage you all to go check that out. And if you have already heard that part and you're here for this next part, thank you for coming back. We really appreciate y'all. But yeah, so Dom, what's your question, bro? I'm curious.
Oh, well, the questions that I had for you was, what is because we were talking about earlier the last episode, that how you got your calling, and also the things that is important of why you're doing this.
Right.
My next question is, what is the most boring part of doing what you do? Because we always be like, oh, what's the exciting part?
Right.
And that, what is the thing that you like?
So for me, I think it's boring, but I think it's also necessary. Is board meetings. I think when we're not focused on doing what is needed to do, and this is for every industry, when you're just trying to like put in your input on something instead of working together to focus on a goal, I think it's easy to go in circles. And to me, for in church, being in a board meeting where everyone's just speaking their inputs but not really moving forward together as a group is so draining, emotionally draining. But like, don't get me wrong, there are days where I have board meetings where it's just like we go through our different tasks and we're like on point with everything and we end in like less than 2 hours. I'm like, that's productive. I love that. But when we're just kind of just like, it's talking about so and so did this, or no, I'm like,
so the sky is blue. Yes, it's blue, right? No, yeah, it's blue. No, but you know what? The sky is kind of light blue. And then you just go on this. It's just like
we lose direction because we're no longer focused on the goal.
Exactly. I agree with that.
So to me, that's what's pretty boring. But
I like that because it's like a wordplay pun, bored. What is the most boring part?
So whenever I text people, sometimes I'm like, yeah, I'm at a board, bored
meeting.
And I was like, okay, good one, pastor. I was like, yeah, you already know.
Oh man, for you guys who haven't experienced board meetings, it is like that. It gets very taxing, to you.
But I think it's necessary. Like,
it is necessary
for like any functioning group, whether it be a friend group or a business group or whatever. Like, you need to talk amongst yourselves on, whatnot. Like, obviously in friend groups is kind of different because then we're not really talking about goals. It's more so like, how can we create bonds within ourselves, like rapport amongst each other, right? So we have like these like late night talks, that stuff. I think that's kind of similar to a church setting or a business setting because you're talking about the ecosystem that you've created with people, right? So like, would I get rid of it? No. Would I make it more effective in a way? Absolutely. Because like, that's what's necessary, because we need to create a direction and move together as a group. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, it's a very known quote, I guess, or saying that says, if you love what you do, it will never feel like it's going to be a job to you.
Absolutely.
And when people feel or think that their job is job a job that they have to work on,
Yeah.
it loses the purpose of why
Yeah.
you're doing this. And I think we're not perfect, and we're all going to be not thinking about that, but if a constant reminder that you're doing this for a purpose, and
Yeah.
or you know what the purpose of this job is, I think it would be very beneficial to a lot of people, and
Mhm.
it
And I
would
think
be practical.
and I think too, like when we're so focused on the paycheck, rather than committing to what we're passionate about, we lose what makes us unique within what we're doing. Like it loses
Mhm.
our creativity, right? Like I know for many, for example, like I know for many people who are in certain industries, when they're so focused on, for example, like photography, when they're so focused on, I need to follow through with the requests of my clients,
Yes.
right? They kind of feel more drained, at least from my experience. They feel more drained because they're no longer doing it because they're passionate, but because they're getting paid.
Yeah.
And not to say that that's wrong. If some people want to do that, then by all means go ahead. But like I know
It's
for me, like the reason why I got into photography and videography was it was a passion. And that's honestly one of the reasons why like I'm kind of hesitant of pursuing this more of as a career. And I just rather
right.
just keep it as like a freelance hobby type thing. Because to me, like that art form is an art form. It's not a corporate form of work.
It's very stressing too.
Hmm.
Because low key, I did some shoots. Someone hired me, thankfully. Some like little small skills for photography, and if you really think about it, that like you said, you have to. What does my client want?
Yeah.
What do I have to do to achieve these things? It's very stressing. And speaking about that, when we were doing when we do shoots, right? So if everything was perfect, I would like to say that my first takes are good, but it's very good.
Opa.
Um, you have to think about this as still an art, even though you're doing the same thing over and over.
Okay.
You have
Yeah.
to give your all. I mean, for big productions, if there's a director and this and that, they would say 10%, meaning give out your 10% of acting, or 30%. But I remember for that scene, I was giving like always 100% because I always want the outcome to be good. And one of the sayings as well, because I like sayings in quotes, that in Green Book, if you haven't watched that movie, it's such a
Good
great
movie.
film, Green Book.
So good.
He
Mahershala Ali,
goes,
man.
my dad told me, he's like, if you're gonna do something, do it 100%. If you're gonna eat like it's your last. I'm not saying do that every day because it's gonna be crazy if you feast every day, but do it to the best that you can.
Hmm.
Not thinking about all these hooplas around about your job and work and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, like that mentality also is what gets me out of bed in the moments when I don't feel like moving. Like, like I don't know if you've experienced this during the pandemic, but like during the pandemic, I was going to say panorama in
Pandemic.
pandemic, whatever.
Pandemic.
During the quarantine, there are days where I'm just like, man, I don't feel fulfilled, right? Like I don't feel like myself. I was going through some emotional states and whatever. But what gets me going is like, man, like I gotta be committed to what I do. Like I told myself that I'm passionate about it. And whenever I'm like not feeling passionate, I think about like what gets me going. And that's like, oh, I have this sense of responsibility or whatever that I need to do what I love to do, or else if I don't, I kind of lose myself. So that's what gets me out of bed is just like, do something that makes you feel happy. And like when I used to do Zoom, because now church is back online, schools are back online. I mean, back not online, back in person.
No, in
Sorry,
person. In person. Yeah.
yeah. But when I did stuff online, a lot of it was just like at home. So what kept me, out of bed is honestly my plants. These guys behind me.
Hey, shout
Um,
out to the plants. Shout
Shout
out to the
outs.
player.
So this is Shrub and this is Stan. Anyways, um, it was just like a sense of purpose of like, man, like I got to get up because I need to water my plants.
You know what are the plants?
And then when
Yeah.
I open the blinds and I feel the sun, all of a sudden I have like this sense of like I accomplished something, which then led me to like, oh, I got to fix my bed and just exert myself more. And the more I did that, 100% of me, the more I felt like, okay, I'm in control, even if the situation isn't something I can control. And I think like going back to what we're talking about, like the industry and like movies and photography, like, yes, there are certain things that you need to listen to your client, right? From a photographer's perspective, or there are certain things that you need to do as an actor to listen to your director to make a good movie. But in the same time, what makes it great is if you allow yourself to, you know, be yourself in those situations too. Like I know for me, when I used to do photo shoots for people, I had to, I was always worried about like, oh, what would they think? What would they this or like, is this what they like for their edits or whatever? But then I had to realize I'm like, the reason why they asked me to take their photos is because they
Because
like the
they
way I
like
do things.
your
Yeah,
exactly.
like, right. And so
Exactly.
if I switch things up for them, then I'm losing myself. And what makes me, what basically ruins
The
the
reason why they
reason
hired
why they
you.
chose, yeah, why they chose me. And so I'm like, I gotta just do doing me. And if you don't like my work, then hey man, don't hire me next time. But you paid me already, so it's too late. You know what I mean? But
Interestingly,
yeah,
for some people, I don't know if you've probably experienced this too. Thinking about that this is work and you need to, it's a responsibility that you need to fulfill,
yeah.
gets people going. Have you ever crammed? Of course, you've crammed
Of course,
before,
bro. That's
right?
all I do.
It's funny how sometimes, in my experience, I did the best when I was cramming,
Criming?
cramming, cramming.
Yeah. Procrastinating. Yeah, of course.
So, like, oh, it's due tomorrow. I need to do it. But in a way, you kind of did, and it turned out to be great
You know what it is? I think it's also
while
because
you were there.
you're losing that mentality of like, whatever happens, happens. I mean, like you're gaining that mentality of like, this is all I could do, and whatever happens, like you don't overthink anymore. You just do. And
Yeah,
if it's not the best work, at least you did something. I think that's, at least for me, that was my mentality. Whenever I had to do papers, I would do like the next day. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just do it. And if it sucks, but I did it. And like
mm,
when I don't overthink things, that's when I honestly do the best work. Like when it just comes out naturally, I think, right?
yeah. I
But
agree. I've had that told me. Some people told me that a
and
couple of
yeah,
times.
but fast forward to now, look, I'm a youth pastor. My procrastination led me to become, you know, in
With
like with a job, with a career, with a passion, you
yeah,
know?
and with a lot, yeah, with a lot of duties and a lot of responsibility. Because I think when people think about having a career in, let's say,
Yeah.
medicine or being a lawyer or being a policeman, all of these things are very important, and they have a lot of different important responsibilities that they have to fulfill. When they think about, oh, pastor, and be like, oh, he just talks about God, this and that, but then it's deeper than that. Like
Oh
what
yeah.
you do is very, very important, especially for the people that you have in your congregation,
Yeah.
right?
Like I know for me, like I really had to learn to stop focusing so much on like my responsibilities, like the extrinsic motivation stuff, but more so intrinsic. Like for example, like my best sermons come from my own personal study, right? My best artwork comes from the moments when I'm just working on me and not doing it for a client. My best, whatever my best is mostly a result of me just focusing on it because I want to do it, not because I'm required to do it, right? And I think that's the same thing when it comes to arts, when it comes to any industry, when you're intrinsically, like from the inside, motivated to do things, like you do your best work, right? Um, and obviously, some of us might need a little bit more external push, right? Like deadlines and stuff like that. Like, in fact, our podcast would have not been out if we didn't set a deadline for ourselves, honestly,
Right.
right? Even then, like, it was a deadline that I created for myself because I'm the one like editing this and like being the one to push it out. I'm like, man, you know what? If I just relaxed, I got, and some people need that. But in the same time, like, what started the podcast wasn't because I had a deadline too. It was something within myself, like this intrinsic motivation, right? So like there needs to find a balance, is what I'm trying to say. Of
Yeah,
like,
it's your sense of knowing that you have a responsibility,
yeah,
right? That keeps you going, because now, when people say, "Oh, yeah, I've been working a lot. I haven't had a break, blah blah blah." So what do you do? Like, yeah, I'm not working, this and that. And like, oh, you're so lucky. You have so much freedom. But the thing about freedom is freedom comes with a lot of different responsibility as well.
yeah,
Like, okay, now you're free. What are you going with this? What are you
exactly,
going to be doing with this freedom that you have?
yeah,
And we all felt this during the pandemic, when a lot of people were laid off, a lot of people didn't have jobs, a lot of people were staying home, and be like, okay, what am I going to do now? So a lot of people had a different experience during the pandemic, whether they did really, really active at first, or they procrastinated, or
yeah,
what have you. Um, and it's actually, I actually like being busy. It gives me a sense of purpose,
yeah.
because you know that you're going to do something in that day. For people who are working every day and every time, they need that break.
Mhm.
You
And
know.
that goes down to what we were saying too. I think it was either earlier in this podcast or the previous one, where we talk about like people just want to be valued,
Hmm.
right? And like being busy is what gives you value. But I think true value comes from first from within. If you don't value yourself here in your own state of mind, who cares if people value you outside? Because they don't see you when you wake up. They don't see you when you go to sleep. It's you who sees you. And
Yeah.
if you're not happy with yourself, then don't expect other people to fulfill that for you. Like I've dealt with a lot of like people, including myself. Like I've gone through the same struggle and I'm still going through it sometimes. But like there's moments where I'm like, ah man, I need to go to people for to find this fulfillment, this sense of happiness, this sense of 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 value. But in
Right.
reality, like that can be easily filled within yourself. And I think the reason why like I still am where I am today, like my belief in God. In fact, that's what started me believing in God really again when I was going through my stages of transition, was that this belief in myself beyond myself, if that makes sense. Like there was a
Hmm.
higher being that was able to, show me that I'm valued within myself. I can value myself, that I love myself because of, this belief system. And I think like, yeah, when I was going through the motions of life, I didn't have that. And it was easy. That's why I noticed how like in my earlier days when you and I used to hang out, um, there was always either I'm talking to some new girl or like there's always a new friend group I'm with because I'm trying to jump from people to people, trying to find this sense of fulfillment. Right.
Mm. Mm.
But and like I remember like I was telling you like oh man I'm never gonna leave Montreal, like this is home, like but like
Yeah.
fast forward what 8-9 years later, I'm living on my own, doing my own thing, finding fulfillment in my own way, and it's all because of like I'm learning how to love myself. And like it's crazy because as I'm going through this journey, people are starting, like non-Christian people, right, everyone else, self-help books are starting to become popular. This idea of self-care and mental health is starting to blow up because not only is it a Christian mentality, it's a world mentality where we need to take care of ourselves. You know what I mean? Like, and you can't function 100% you, since that's what we were talking about earlier. You can't function in 100% if you are not 100% when you first start within yourself, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah, it
you need
doesn't
to,
make sense.
like that's why I think method actors are so good because they get into that mentality of their actor. They actually become that actor. They embody their self in that character, and then whatever they do in film is just natural cause to what they were working on, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's just like, yeah, this is me just rambling
Yeah.
about, the importance of self. But yeah, that's
I just want to touch on what you said earlier about
sure.
pretty much just saying do you, and being selfish. And I was listening to one of my favorite actors, Matthew McConaughey. All right, all right, all right.
All right. All right.
Uh, and he was saying that he likes being selfish, but not in a way where I don't think about other people. It's more for about what he's doing, specifically with work. You know what I
Mhm,
mean?
mhm, mhm.
So when he says that, what I think it's a positive way of saying that, no, I don't give a f. I don't give a I don't give a about
You're
anything
right.
else. I think it's a very very positive way of saying it in a way where if you focus on yourself and you focus on that thing that you say do you, because everything that would follow along would be very organic,
Hmm.
and it would be fruitful for you as well,
Yeah.
especially in your career. It's not saying that I don't give a crap about anybody else, I'm just going to do me. It's more of I'll do it my way of how I know it. Not
Right.
saying that I'm not going to be listening to other people. Of that is very beneficial as well, learning and educating yourself.
Yeah. That's what we were talking about
But
before.
I guess it's a good and positive way of saying I don't give a crap.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
No, no,
If that
and
makes sense. Yeah.
I get that. I get that. And that's why, like, man, like that's one of the things I've been like wanting to help young people, first of all, realize, as well as older people in my church and whatnot, is like one of the biggest issues with church is that people feel like people in church are hypocrites because they'll tell you one thing, but they'll totally do different. And I think
Right.
it's because, and like not to sound preachy, and I know I tend to do that, but it's because like they talk about this relationship with God when they don't even experience it themselves. And so
Right.
it's not natural, right? Like you were saying, it doesn't come off natural, which
Mm.
then when it's not natural, it's phony, it's fake, it's hypocritical. And I think like before we go speak on something that in front of people, we need to know what we're talking about, or at least have experienced it ourselves or perceived it ourselves, rather than just go off secondhand information, right? Like
Thank you.
for
Thank
example,
you.
like for you as an actor, you're not going to go into a role trying to mimic some other actor that you've seen,
Yeah.
right? Because then, like, if that's the case, then why didn't they just go for that actor instead of you?
Because they can't
He's
afford him.
expensive. Yeah, he's expensive. But even then, like, why would I cop out for a secondhand thing, right? Like, why don't I just go for the original? And I think
Yeah.
that's what makes these great actors, these great musicians, so great, is because they're uniquely themselves
Yeah.
in an industry that says they want individuality but wants you to fit into this mold that sells, right? But I
Yeah.
feel like if you can find that balance of like I said earlier, intrinsic and extrinsic motivation,
Yeah.
you find this greatness somehow, some way. I don't know
Yeah.
how to get there because I'm not there yet, but I feel like hypothetically that's the goal, right?
It's I don't know. I guess that thing. I'm not generalizing the whole idea of Christians, right?
Yeah,
But I'm more. We can speak about. I guess we can say generally too, because we're not perfect. Everybody's
right.
not perfect around the world. But speaking about what we know more about is the Filipino community. Is that um, they would, because they like their and still in the Philippines they're very conservative. Even though a lot of people are very liberal now. That what they were handed down, or what people taught them, they want to teach people now, because of course it does make sense that it is logically good, it's morally good, it's logically good, and it's all good. But
All good in the
then
hood.
it's all good, but then of course we have these tendencies that we're not perfect, that we do otherwise,
Hmm.
right? And I think that is kind of like a bad rap when it comes
Oh yeah,
to you know
and
people
think
who are not believers viewing these people.
Right. And I think the intentions are good.
It's misunderstanding, I believe.
It's misunderstanding, and I think it's also like
Misconception.
the the what's it called? I had this conversation with someone else too. Oh, I forgot. But it's basically like the method of delivery is also outdated per se.
Mm-hmm.
Like, like let's say like back in the day, if you wanted to reach me, you would write a letter, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people still write letters, but like what's more effective now? People send emails, people
Mm-hmm.
FaceTime, before when texting, even texting, me and you used to text T9, right? We had T9 to text, and now we have keyboards on our
Yeah,
phones. And even then, our keyboards are screens. It's not even,
it's a touch
touch.
screen.
Yeah, it's not even tangible anymore. It's just a screen. Anyways, the essence of messaging and talking to people is important. It's just the method of delivery is now changed. It doesn't devalue the message, right? It doesn't devalue the importance of whatever. It's just the method of delivery needs to fit in the times. And honestly, that's one of the reasons why, like, I do what I do, is because I really believe in this message of looking beyond yourself and believing in something, and that idea that I was sharing before of like the importance of morals and values,
It's
right?
it's the
It's just
yeah
now it's just now present it has to be presented in a way that makes sense to this generation. It just can't be like, oh, if you do that, you're going to go to hell. It's like,
yeah
whatever, I'm already doing it, might as well. But like, if you
yeah.
show them like, hey, like, I don't know, I can't think of an example from the top of my head, but if you show
I
them like,
guess it's when they say something about a lot of stuff, instead of explaining the purpose and the reason behind it, they would just say it's
just
like
do
a
it.
shortcut.
Yeah,
There's no middle ground of reasoning. So it's like, this is cause and this is effect, and
yeah,
there's no reason in the middle,
yeah.
right? So one of it keeps on jumping into my mind when you were saying the delivery system. It's one of these, because I love Friends. It's a part when Joey had a girl roommate, and then he was influenced by is Australian roommate. I don't know if you remember this.
I,
And
I
I
haven't
don't know if
watched
you watch
Friends.
Friends. It's all good. So he has this roommate, Australian
Yeah.
roommate, really really hot. And
Okay.
so the roommate uh, decorated the apartment kind of like very girly, right? And Chandler came. He goes like, you're becoming a girl. He was like, what do you mean? You have this like flower
Yeah.
arrangement. You have this potpourri. What are you doing? Like, are you crying? And he goes, it's not what you said. It's the way you said it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he's like, wait, I'm a girl. And then he just realizes, oh, we can wait, I'm a girl. And it keeps on jumping to me, like how he
Yeah.
said, like, it's not the what you said, it's the
It's
way
how
you
you,
say it.
yeah.
And I think it's very important, especially with of if we're gonna be doing, especially this, podcasts. Doing podcasts is very vital. If you actually don't think of how you're gonna be delivering the
Yeah.
message that you want to deliver.
Yeah.
So
Like I didn't think we were going to be talking about this, honestly.
this was not in the books. This was not
But
in
in
the
the
plan.
same time,
But
like,
I'm,
I
I'm
think,
actually glad that we are talking about
yeah,
it,
I was
though.
going to say that too. And it just goes to show, at least for me, and I always tell this to my friends who I tell them like, hey, listen to my podcast, or like our podcast. It's like, man, I can't believe how far I've come. Like, I can only speak for myself. Like, I know you two, you've gone pretty far from where you've started, where we started. But like, from my own experience, I was like, to be able to talk freely about what I believe in, to even stand for something, instead of just fooling around and being whatever, it
Right.
just shows a lot of growth. And you mentioned it in our previous podcast with Jill. It's like, the reason why I have this growth is because I allowed myself to struggle. And there's certain things I still don't allow myself. Like, I'm scared to struggle, but the fact that I can admit that is like, okay, that's good enough for me. Like, for now, I know it's there. I'm aware it's there. It's a matter of like what I do next. And yeah, just like, oh man, just talking to you about this is just like, it's nice to get it out in the air, because I
Yeah.
think for me, especially during my transitional phase, like, I would say maybe 8 years ago, or even 10 years ago, if you were to tell me that I was going to become a youth pastor, I'd laugh at you, because I'm like,
You
man,
know what? I honestly, I never saw you becoming a nurse at all.
Hey,
Dude,
hey, hey,
you're
hey.
kind of clumsy, bro. I'm just
Yo, yo,
saying
yo, yo,
it
yo. Chill,
in
chill,
a
chill,
way.
chill.
but
You're right
but
though. You're
no,
right
I
though.
I pictured you becoming you now. I
No.
never told you this, but I did because
Especially
not
with all the
only
stupid things I was doing, bro.
yeah, still.
Hey, maybe,
I
maybe,
never saw you
maybe my
um
perception of myself was different.
having a having a different path, and people back then used to tell you, oh, you should do this, you should pursue this and that, which is good, you
The thing
know.
is, and I think I've shared this to you, but I don't know if I shared this in the podcast. The thing is, nursing was going to be like my career, but it wasn't going to be like my only thing. Like I was actually thinking of also doing DJing. I remember, I think I told you, I was like, oh,
That
I'm in,
is so Filipino, bro. That is like what? Oh, what's your job? I'm a nurse and the
I'm a nurse by
DJ.
day and a DJ by night. Bro, but hey, man, like that's what I wanted to do. Cause
It pays, yeah.
like I remember when I was in Vanier and I kind of decided to drop out before I came to Alberta to do pastoring. I looked into music engineering because I wanted to
Hmm.
learn how to produce. I wanted to be the
How to
next Dr.
DJ, huh?
Dre.
How to
Yeah,
DJ.
I want to be a DJ, okay, everybody. But yeah,
Yeah,
like I wanted to do that because like it was just something fun already. But like looking at it now and like seeing how much I've learned, like I would have never thought I would be here. Um, and it's just like, man, like it goes to show like, and this is kind of one of the reasons why too, like I wanted to do this podcast was I wanted to finally embrace my past.
right.
I think, and this was one of the reasons why I wanted to do this episode with you was because I wanted to put it out there, but I wanted to like kind of talk about like how when I decided to become a pastor, I looked at my life beforehand. And I don't think I mentioned this to you, but I looked at my life beforehand and I realized that, man, like this doesn't fit the image that I thought I should be. So I cut it
Hmm.
off. And that's why like I fell off for a bit. Like our friendship kind of just was like in the air for a bit. I just totally disappeared and didn't call anyone, didn't talk to anyone from my past, and just focused on the people I was with. And it's only recently too, actually, where the people I was with, we were just talking, and they were like, "How come you're so? It doesn't feel like you're being yourself, all right?" And it's like, oh, like every time you show this side of you, like of like this, this ghetto side of you, it's like it doesn't like. Why are you trying to pretend? And it's only like honestly a couple days ago where I realized I'm like, I wasn't trying to pretend that I was this, this ghetto kid. I was this ghetto kid. What I'm trying to pretend is I'm a good person, right? I think for so long I've been hiding that ghetto side, but it comes out naturally because that's who I was. Um, and I was really trying to fake being a good person because that's not who I was before. You know, go ahead. What do you
No,
want to
I
say?
know. I actually noticed that when you left and you would come back, and we would notice this kind of like a different version of you.
Yeah,
And from the jump, I knew that it wasn't going to be constant, because I mean it won't last. Like when you like one time you would go back, and then the next time you go back, you'd have kind of like the different persona. But
right,
I
right.
knew you were in the process of kind of you were soaking up all these experiences that you're going through there, and in a way that was kind of manifested through you.
Yeah, yeah.
And from the jump, that's why I didn't judge you at all.
Appreciate
And
that.
I'm a very judgmental person, by the way.
No, I believe
um,
it. I appreciate that.
but I knew that you were going through all these things, especially living alone, being in a different part of the country. It's still in Canada, and having all these experiences that you're experiencing, it's way different from Montreal.
Yeah,
So I knew from the jump that you were you
yeah.
were
And
you
I
were
think
kind of like in this melting pot.
yeah, like I really was trying to hide that side of me. Like at that time, like I really wanted to be perceived as a genuine good guy, especially like when I got into my program to be like a pastor. People don't think of a pastor as someone who smokes cigarettes, who drinks, who hangs out at a shisha bar and just chills. But like that was me. And for so long, I really tried to hide it from people. And only
Right.
people from Montreal knew, right? The people from my past, only they're the ones who knew that side of me. But even then, like you were saying, you got a weirder side also. You got this side of me trying to pretend like, oh, I'm a better person. You're like, that's
That
not
was weird.
you.
That was very weird.
Yeah. No, and like I don't blame it, I don't blame anyone, especially that time. And it's only like honestly with the pandemic that really helped me see that like it's not about hiding my past, but rather embracing it and moving forward. And that's why like, and the only reason I see that is because when I was doing my stuff at church, the only way I become relatable to people and I become accepted by people and people start to see and understand what I'm trying to teach them is when I show that side of myself, a little bit of that side of myself, where I show them my struggle, where I talk about my pain and my suffering and my questioning. And they're like, oh, yo, pastor is actually relatable. Like I understand because that's what I'm
Yeah.
going through. But I never really, was like, hey, look at me. And I have a friend who calls me out on this sometimes. And he's like, yo, like, why do you always talk about like back then? Like, why don't you just go back to it? And it made me realize it's like I cut it off, but because it happened, I talk about it as if like it was the best thing that happened to me. Like I
Right.
glorified it, right? Because I can no longer do it. I feel like it's restricting me. Like, it's a forbidden thing. Like I said earlier in our either this podcast or that last episode, where it's like when you refrain from doing something, the more you're intrigued by it, right? And that's what happened to me. And like, man, like only now where I'm realizing that, like, yo, my past is my past, but that's what makes me different. And if I learn to love that side of me again, how much more further I can move forward. And that's why when we're talking about like, the importance of loving self and figuring out yourself, yo, I speak from a place where I'm still doing that now. I'm still moving forward and I'm learning and I'm like, yo, I'm a ghetto kid who went to a ghetto private school but found God. And now I'm trying to find a balance of how can I still be good with everyone.
Go
Anyways,
ahead.
yeah. Anyways, I was gonna say, man, like I'm sad because like there were so many good friendships back then that I had that I cut off because it didn't fit in this mentality or this mold that I had of who I wanted to be.
Right.
And then there were some friendships that I gained that prevented me from being myself. And so there were like I had to find a balance within that. And man, like in all honesty, like genuine honesty. And I don't know why I'm being so vulnerable right now, but in total honesty, that's the reason why I wanted to do this podcast. It's because I wanted to reconnect and not to sound sappy. And I'm not trying to cry, but I wanted to reconnect with one of my boys that I literally kind of left behind.
Do I know this person?
Talking to this person right now.
Oh,
Stupid. Oh my goodness. Okay.
dude.
Like, no, and genuine, like honesty, like, man, stop that. Stop. Cut the rap. No, but I'm dead serious. Like, I like, for example, like I left you behind. I left my friend LJ behind. I left all of these good friendships behind because at that time I didn't feel like you guys fit into this mold of who I wanted to be.
I
But when I
respect that. I
but when I
respect
think about it, I wouldn't have not been here if it wasn't for those friendships.
that. I
And so,
respect that.
like, at the end of the day, like, one thing that the pandemic has taught me, and I know that's one of the questions that you had,
Yeah.
was that learn how to love yourself and everything that comes with it.
Mm.
And yeah, like my friends, my family, even my family, I actually cut off my family sometimes. Like, I actually don't talk to my parents because I was like, man, I need to get out of like being in this bubble of like, oh, my parents are what's holding me back. But I realized, like, no, my parents aren't holding me back. They're the reasons, they're the things that are holding me up, you
Right.
know? And like, if I within myself can find a balance of having my friends that I am with right now and my friends from my past and my family and all these things, I personally think that that would make me a better person. You know what I mean? And so
True.
like,
True.
going back into what our theme of growth and like idea of finding ourselves, I think, yeah, this podcast has really helped me find my growth, finding my love for people again, because I've always had this partial love. It was never a full incomposing, full circle love. Basically, is
Yeah,
what I'm
yeah,
trying to
yeah, yeah,
say.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, that's it.
Man,
That's all.
you know what? You know what, brother? I really appreciate that because I think we did have a falling out for a little bit for quite a while, and for reasons for you and I just to know,
Yeah.
and for them never to find out.
Unless they ask or
Um,
whatever, but in person. But yeah, go ahead.
because I had an experience of falling out too with a friend of mine back then. You know this person, and we never reconnected, and it's really sad when I know girls who had falling out from friendships, but then they reconnect some way somehow. But then when boys have that thing, it's kind of like an egoistic type thing
Oh,
and pride,
absolutely. Yeah.
where it's never gonna happen and we're never gonna reconnect. But what's great about our friendship is that we still had that certain connection, even though we weren't in speaking terms for quite a while,
Yeah.
you know. And then what's great about it is that when you come back here and we hang, and then I tweak that little thing and I trigger you and be like, okay, he's back, he's here. You know what I mean? Because we did spend a lot of freaking time together, having all those moments, ups and
So
downs and
many.
whatnot.
It was so much that people thought you and I were dating.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it's like bro. I don't know if you remember, but everywhere I went, you were there. Everywhere you went, I was there for the most
Yeah,
part, right?
yeah,
And it was just like people would always be like, "Yo, it's Dom and John or John and Dom," right? It was never just Dom or it's never just Jonathan. It was both of us. It
yeah.
came as a package deal.
But
So
and I remember I think of you because we were so close, and um and we saw each other every day, that when you left, it was kind of a drought
hmm,
of nothing, and it was like, yo, what's happening, and
right,
for whatever reason we never contacted each other for quite a while, until for some time after that we
yeah,
we did reconnect. But yeah, man, I appreciate that, because I'm telling you, I'm as an only child, I treasure each and every friendship that I have, because I don't have any siblings.
that's true.
But I'm proud of the friends that I have, my core friends, and you're part of that, and the family that I have. You're like, of
I
course,
made
man.
it. I made it.
You should know that. Like you said, going along the way, having being in this age that we are now,
Yeah,
we used to have so much friends. I have like 1,000 something friends on
on
Facebook
Facebook.
that I don't
I don't
speak
even
with,
know these people.
you know
Yeah,
but then you have this core that you have in your life where you treasure them and you speak to them, most of the time, and
yeah,
that's who you treasure. And I think that's quality over quantity all the time should
absolutely.
be the motto.
It depends. If you go to a Chinese buffet, then quantity is always good. That's what's up.
You have those favorites though.
Yeah, like in Fulam, bro, the noodles.
Speaking of that,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
going to lighter things,
yeah. Because
uh,
I almost cried there, bro. Like, move on, move on, move on.
ready right here, man.
I
It's
can't, I
ready
can't.
right here.
Your Wi-Fi is bad. I can't connect. But go
You
ahead, go
know,
ahead.
when you feel it in your throat. So,
Oh man, stop, 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 man.
so speaking of Fulham and speaking of buffets,
Yes, sir.
Montreal now is open. Restaurants are open. Last week they just opened the patios and the terrace
Patios and the terrace.
patios, But now you can go inside the restaurant and
Oh, for
dine.
real?
Yes, sir.
Man, we gotta wait a couple more days for us to do that.
I'm not gonna do that. My boy Joshua, we're gonna have him on the podcast. I hope soon, because he's so busy. Like, he
Man, he
told
just doesn't want
me,
to talk to me, bro.
just the last week,
Yeah.
they were so busy, and you just see him in his face. He's like, hey man, what's up? And I'm like,
Nah, but that's another guy that I want to talk to because man, like this guy pursued his dream, like his passion, man.
ever
Like he has a
since
food
back
truck
then,
now. Good
he
for him,
has
man.
it.
Good for him.
Yeah, he has a very interesting story to tell. He's a chef now. Shout out to Saint Blanc. You can, you know,
Hook
support
us
us.
up. Yeah. You want to sponsor us or sponsor me out here in Calgary? I'm good.
Speaking of that, how are you going to be? Because now Filipino Heritage Month.
Hmm.
How are you going to be celebrating this month, man?
Bro, every
I
day
know
is
we're not.
Filipino month for me,
I
man.
had, huh? Say what?
Every day is Filipino month for me, represent.
But have you
uh
ever celebrated it?
yeah,
Because
yeah, yeah.
personally, I'm not really super big on celebrating.
Right.
So what I will do is just support all the Filipino
Oh yeah,
businesses out here,
bro.
play OPM music, and also I'm very proud of the things that all the Filipinos has done all over
Right.
the globe. So
I mean, like for me, man, like I remember back home in Montreal. I don't know, like I don't remember it being a month. I remember it was just like during the Independence Day weekend
oh, the
celebration.
Pista Sanayon,
Yeah,
yeah.
so we would always do that, and I always go there, get some fish balls, get some bubble tea, talk to some shotties, and be like, "Yo, what's up?"
Shadi,
Yeah,
shadi,
yeah,
grabe,
uy,
man.
pare, shotty. Anyways,
Shadi.
ew, ew. Anyways, sorry if I'm too loud, but yeah, like I remember that was like what I used to do. And before the pandemic, they had a Filipino festival out here, but I don't know if they're doing that now. So I guess I'm just gonna like you brought up a good idea. I'm gonna support some Filipino restaurants out here because your boy doesn't know how to cook. That's a lie. I know how to cook. I just don't like cooking as much because,
I've
bro,
never, I've never had any of your cooking, man. If you ever
I mean, I can cook rice and eggs and skip the
can make them,
dishes and Uber.
yeah.
But yeah. No, but I've been harshly recently, and since we're talking about it, I've been recently craving some like really like good Filipino food, man. I miss
Man,
kare kare. I miss
mm,
just even like tocino.
yeah.
Oh man, what else?
What is your favorite Filipino dish, though? If you could only have one ulam, okay, for the audience, for people
Listening.
out there listening right now who don't speak Tagalog or non-Filipino, ulam is just a side dish. Is that a side dish? No,
It's a side dish in English, but like in
is
like
it a side
Tagalog,
dish?
it's a very more it's more so like our main course because
Yeah,
rice is our
it
side
has to
dish.
be with the rice.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. What would
Um,
you your favorite ulam?
I'd say kare kare. Like that to me
You
is
would
the
eat that
best.
forever, forever.
Oh, absolutely, man. Like the kare kare, how to make it good is that having different parts of the meat in there. So you have like
Mm,
the tender side with the fats on it, but then you have the oxtail, the bone where you sip the buto. And I was like, man, that's like my favorite. And like being
right.
Canadian, that's kind of like what? But like, man, when it comes to Filipino food, I eat it all. Like pang manok, bro. I'll eat the tendons on the finger,
The
the feet,
Adidas,
the
yeah, chicken
Adidas,
feet,
bro. The mata ng salmon, bro. That's like so good. Oh man, I miss Filipino
the head of
food,
the salmon. Yeah, 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 yeah.
bro. Freaking sip the brain.
Never did that.
Really, bro,
No.
man. What else? The uy pare, the zigzags pare. You know
Zigzags, Barry. Give me zigzags, here, Barry.
the laman loob, bro. That's so
Isaw,
good.
yeah.
The isaw is so
Oh man.
man. I miss home. I haven't been home since 20. When I say home, like I mean like the motherland home, like Philippines. I,
Okay.
I
Okay.
haven't been there since 2016. I think yeah, 2016 was the last time I went to the
6 years.
Phils.
Yeah.
Man, I miss it, man.
I was there 28 okay, I was there 2015, 2018 and 2019.
Right.
And I believe that 2018 and 2019 were the best years that I went there. Because of the experiences that I've had and the people that I've met.
Mhm.
Really, especially before, my age now, becoming where I am.
Right.
I think
Okay.
people would probably know how old I am
They
now.
probably know.
And
Whatever. It doesn't matter.
I was just very, very nervous. I'm proud to be 30. I'm 30. And for the people watching, it's not that scary, because prior to that, I was asking them, one of my friends who's going to be hopping on our podcast, by the way, Mike. And I
Either
was like,
before
Mike,
this podcast or after. We'll see how the scheduling
we'll
goes.
see how this goes. I was like, Mike, buddy, how did you feel when you turned 30? He's like, nothing. It's like, it's a normal thing. And I was really nervous. It's like I'm gonna transform into something else as soon as I hit. But then I'm actually really excited for what the future would bring. And let's try to be like wine. The older you get, the more tastier you become.
I don't drink wine, so I don't know what that tastes like.
No, but it's the saying. It's the saying. Or adobo.
Bro, by the
Because
time you
the
eat
more it
adobo,
gets marinated.
oh, you mean when you're cooking it? I thought I meant like after, because the longer you wait for adobo,
dude, even 2 days adobo is still good, man.
Yeah, but if you wait longer than that, bro, it's panis already. You throw it out.
Yeah, I know, but because you don't drink wine, so I'm just trying to.
Yeah. No, I get you. I was just messing, man. But on the real though, like, I don't think anything will change. I'm not 30 yet, so I don't know yet. But I know from like observation that when you hit 30, it's not so much a transformation, but when you're 30 and you look back to where you were, you can see the progression all of a sudden. And like, I think that's just any age, honestly. But like for me, where I am now, man, like the amount of growth that I've experienced from even from when I left. I mean, like, man, it's up to whoever's listening to decide what I'm talking about. But anyways, yeah, like I think, man, the growth that I've endured, I think it was good. And like,
I'm so sorry, that was so funny.
The man, you ruined like this good moment for me, man. Whatever.
Go ahead.
No, I'm done. I'm done trying to sound like, I know it all. But anyways, man, we got a few more minutes here left. Any last comments or questions?
I think we'll reserve that for the next one. I'm really, really glad that we did this. Never actually thought that it was gonna turn out to become this type of episode for us.
Yeah, it's a good thing too, because we're trying to get rid of male toxicity, man. As guys, we need to talk about our feelings sometimes. It's okay to talk about our feelings because that's what makes us human. You know what I mean?
Hell yeah. It's okay to cry.
Yeah, man. So thank you everyone for listening. I know, this is part 2 of this long conversation, and I know there's more that we want to talk about later on. So much. And it may be on the podcast, it may not. It might just stay between me and Dom. But like I said, thank you everyone for listening to our podcast. Like always, look us up.
We're going to be talking about growth again.
Yeah, growth in our life. Anyways, like always, search us up on Instagram at Kwentossentials. We're also on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, and wherever else you listen to podcasts. We didn't shout ourselves out our Instagram last episode, so where can we find you, bro?
The link in the bio. You're gonna find it on Instagram. You can find me at D0MZONE. That's Domzone on Instagram.
And you can always find me at JUSTCRZING, Just Cruising, on Instagram and here on the podcast. But with that being said, thank you everyone for listening. We love y'all. Thanks for sticking through our conversation, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.